Hi, today we're in this lovely setting. We're having a chat with Ellie Nielsen, author and actress. Thank you so much for joining us. What inspired you to write your book, Buying a Piece of Paris?
I think that how fortunate I was, that was probably the main impetus. It took me a long time to believe that I actually had a piece of Paris. And I was also very surprised that when I returned after buying the apartment, that so many people I was studying French at the Alliance Française at the time, and I was just inundated with people who wanted to know, how did you go about it? What are all the ins and outs? Is it really difficult? How much language do you need? How does it all work? What's the system? So much so that I thought, there's a good story in this.
So, how did you go from being a successful actress to being an author?
My acting work was largely, just about exclusively, in theatre. And after I had my son when he was young, it was not being a mother and acting in the evenings were not really compatible professions. So the other thing, I looked at what else I'd been doing, and I realised that writing would be the other thing I'd been doing a lot of in one way or another. So I decided to go to RMIT, where heaps of writers seem to go, and do my MA. And that was, from there, I learnt the kinds of skills that I needed to be able to write. And when I started, like a lot of people say, of all my workshop group, about 6 women that I went through the course with, once you start, it becomes a bit addictive. You can't stop, actually. There's never enough hours in the day to write all the things that you want to write.
And what was the process like for you to get the book published? Was that something that you thought was relatively difficult? Or for women that are trying to get into publishing, what would you suggest?
My story there is a little unorthodox, I have to say. My supervisor at university sold the synopsis that I wrote after this significant night at the pub, and the next day to a publisher, rang them up and just went, this is the story I'd written about, I don't know, that night I went home and I wrote about 500 words, and this is what I was going to write, this was going to be the tenor of it. He sold it the next day. And in fact, went in with this idea, and I said I had another book idea. I wanted to write a book as well on New York because I'd never been there, and I thought it'd be really interesting to have sort of 2 books, one about a place that you knew exceptionally well and one about the idea of a place that you didn't know at all. And they thought that was a brilliant idea. I signed a 2-book deal with them for a person who'd never written a book. I've read lots of written a book in her life. And and I had to write this book they wanted it in about 7 or 8 months, I remember. So for me, it just became, okay, how many words is it going to be? Around about this many. I have to sit at my desk every single day between around about 9 and 5, and I'm going to write this many words. And that was what I did. At the end of that period, or just before I'd finished that, and I was pretty much on deadline, my publisher at this particular publishing house decided to leave. She was having a baby. She decided to leave completely, though. And the person that took over her position, he and I had a personality clash. Meaning, i.e., he thought the book was absolutely appalling, and I thought, of course, it was still wonderful, and we had this huge clash, and I had to get out of the contract and effectively start again. I decided that I would sit on the book for about 3 months, that it needed more time, have a good look at it, do a bit of a rewrite, come back to it, and then I sent it. My supervisor said, "Oh, why don't you send it to Scribe?" I said, "Why would Scribe be interested in a book like this? Like, they do political books. They're very, they're a serious publishing house. I mean, a very, very good one." He said, "Oh, no, I think it'd be the sort of book they'd like." So he sent it off, and once again, they rang up the next day and bought it. I'm going to read from my book, Buying a Piece of Paris, and I'm actually going to read the opening section, so because I like the opening, and hopefully you will too. I blame the butcher's shop, the one across the street from the first apartment we rented in Paris. Every morning I stood in the window of the apartment, mesmerised by that shop. It was so elegant, so classical, so unlike a place that just sold flesh. I was dazzled by the graceful, tangled curves of Art Nouveau writing on the windows, by the door's fine framed glass panels, and even by Monsieur, who slowly polished his white marble bench as though he was caressing a thigh. But this butcher's shop flaunted its insensible beauty only to mock me. In this shop there were no pre-packaged take-home pop-straight-in-the-microwave meat solutions. Here there were real animals with fur and heads and eyes, meat that looked dead rather than not living. This was meat that demanded experience, French experience. It was experience that excluded me. Everybody's publishing story, I think, is unique. It's hard to get published. Really hard, but then at other times you hear how the story happens so much just like that doesn't seem hard at all. I think if I had to give anybody advice at all for doing that, would be to make sure before you give your book to anybody, it's the best book you can make it.
And who's your greatest inspiration?
Writing wise?
Or any in your life, in your personal life, in writing, in acting? Who inspires you?
I think, well, I read a lot, I suppose, which is normal, as most people who write anything do. I'm absolutely obsessed with Ian McEwan. I think he is a genius writer, and every time I get hold of one of his books, I have to go into the spare room and read it till 6 o'clock in the morning because I just cannot stop reading it. I'm very inspired by my supervisor at university, whose name is Anthony Yark, who was also a published novelist. He's written about 5 novels. He writes literary fiction. But he has been instrumental in every single person that was in my class and the class before mine. Every single person went into that class and came out with published work. And that is in no short to his passion, his drive. He would ring every 2 days. How are you going? How are you coping? Is there anything you need? You know, how is it? It's going to be fabulous. This is going to be great. He's like some sort of coach, you know. And just when you think, oh, the whole thing's falling apart, this is the worst book I've ever written or read, both, you know, in my life, he'll be there going, just keep on message. It's going to be great. It's going to be great, you know. So he's extremely inspirational.
And so how do you manage motherhood as well as being an author and an actress?
I try to confine my work to school hours generally. So I work normally until about 4 o'clock when Ellery comes home, and then we'll have some afternoon tea or help him with his homework or something, and if he's doing that or he's hanging out on Facebook or something, I can go back to work or get the dinner or something. I find that balance though quite good sometimes. You can become a little obsessive about your own work probably otherwise.
Thank you so much for talking with us today. You really are an inspiration.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, complete pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.